All right, so the first thing that I want to do is, I'm just looking at everything here. Okay, so the first requirement that we want to put out there is that, Key, look out, there's people behind you, Doc! Is that we're going to be working in harmony. We're going to be working in tune, boom, harmony. So just as a general quick consensus, if you've never worked with harmony before, don't worry. I'll walk you through some of the tools. It's a very complicated program. It's a very awesome program. I'm going to teach you the part that you need. And it's going to take you a while to get really comfortable with tune boom completely. So we're just gonna talk about the stuff that you need to know how to do for us for this class. All right, and so just a really quick show of hands around the room, and you can do the reactions thing where you just go like this, right? In the reactions area. How many already have harmony? Kristen, you got to get yourself harmony. All right, and a drawing tablet. How many of you already have your drawing tablet? Yeah, you're going to need those things to get through there. All right, Paul, I didn't see any thumbs up from you. You need a drawing tablet, and you need harmony. All right, and so how many? How fast should I go here? How many of you already know some of your keyboard shortcuts for harmony? And so some of you already know that they're weird, right? They're weird. They're not like typical keyboard shortcuts. All right, so let's start at the beginning. What we have here is a shot. And in harmony, what I have here is my stage. And I have my space bar, which I can move things around. I got the little hand tool.
I don't think you shared your screen, Billy.
I'm not sharing you my screen. Why not, man?
I don't know.
Stop being pushy.
So you got your hand, you got your space bar as your little hands tool. You've got your pencil, which is your Alt / and I always forget Alt on a Mac is Option. So let me do this. No. There we go. Okay. So on your keyboard, Alt / is your pencil tool. And when you activate your pencil tool, you have tool options. And the very first thing that you want to do is click on this little triangle right here. And it brings up a floating dialog box. And what I highly recommend for you to do, and this is new, in the last year or so, the numbers are 5, 20%, 5, and 5. And that approximates what a pencil does or what a pencil is. So, you know, that's pretty good right there. And you're welcome to play around with those. What you're trying to do is emulate a pencil, a real true live pencil. Now, I don't know why I'm going to put this away. And again, that's just hidden under this triangle. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, okay. So I'm going to pick a, so there's a strange little anomaly thing there that when you're on a layer, it has to be ready to draw. And so I picked the pencil, which again is Alt / we're under the question mark tool. And I'm looking at this, what does this pencil look like? If you call this up again, and you really want to take your smoothing up a little bit or whatever have you, then go in here. And on this stage right now, the stage is not selected. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just touch here, which selects the stage. And then the 2 key is a zoom in, and the 1 key is zoom out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to draw a little circle. And I want this circle right now, I'm at about, I forget where the percentage is. I'm at 200%. So I'm going to come out here. Now I'm 250, 300, 400% is good. So I'm going to just use my little pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a little circle. So, and if Toon Boom doesn't fix that, if it doesn't try to make a vector out of it too much, then you know that this is acting pretty much like a pencil. I've got a pressure sensitivity on it. I can press really hard and really light. And remember that when I draw a pencil, I'm going to zoom in here. A pencil line is just a line right down the middle. That's your vector. There's a beginning and an end, and there's a line right down the middle. But if I'm using the paintbrush, which is Alt-B, which is a really hard keyboard shortcut, sometimes it's easier to just go to it. Now if I draw this and I hit the K key, which is, it shows strokes, and then the Alt-A key, hold on a second. Alt-S. No, hold on a second. I'm using the wrong keyboard. There we go. Alt-Q is direct select. So when you do this, you can see that now there's lots of vector points on the inside and on the outside of that line. So the big difference between drawing with a pencil and a brush is your vector control. Now, if you really wanted to go through this and start, fattening up lines, then you could use your brush. But for right now, I think the pencil tool is going to be just fine for us. We are at 400%. So if I use the 2 key on the keyboard, and I'm looking over here, OMFG, I'm at 1,250%. I'm at 1,600%. I am now at 2,000%. Shift M takes you all the way back to your stage. Shift M. All right, and then what I've done over here, and I'm going to hit the K key again to get rid of the stroke. So this is just showing me all the vertices, all the vertical points. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be drawing a legend here. And this legend is just a lexicon of all the different shapes that I'm going to use in my pixie dust. So I'm going to go back over to the electric internet for just a moment. And this was my teacher for special effects. His name is Joe Gilland. He did a special effects for Nightmare, for James. He's been a Disney effects animator for 1,000 years. This is a great textbook. It's not just a great textbook for 2D special effects, but the words, the things he talks about in referencing and viewing Mother Nature as an artist, it's just like, oh my God, it's a really fun book to read. Where you know as well as I do that some textbooks can be just wordy. So there's 2 different versions. There's a first and a second edition. Sometimes I like the first edition better. Joe Gilland, Elemental Magic. I don't know if it's on the syllabus or not, but now we're talking about it. When he's doing this, he's talking about line quality and all this stuff. We're doing special effects. So in doing special effects, you're going to need small shapes. I'm going to do this in black right next to my little turquoise. So just get yourself into the habit of, I'm going to go even closer in on this, of feeling what these shapes look like on your stylus. You want perfect circles? Do you want a little donut? Do you want slashes? Do you want a little cross? And the cross should have thin lines on the end and thicker in the middle. Maybe you want a 6-point cross. Maybe you want, and this is supposed to be a triangle here. Maybe you want a little triangle. Maybe you want a little square. There's all kinds of fun shapes you can use in doing special effects. Yeah, you can use a hashtag. And these are exploding stars. So you can have a 3-point exploding star. You can have a 5-point, a 6-point exploding star. You can have little spirals. You can have little exclamation points. There's almost anything will work in here. You just have to carry it through. You can also use all kinds of different colors. All right, so I'm gonna hit Shift M again. I'm gonna come out here. So I think my background, I don't know why my background is gone. I think I might have moved my file. Oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my arc on. And the very first thing that you need to do is take your pencil tool and draw an arc. And so there's a couple of things about this. When you're drawing this arc and you look at this, where's my preview? When you look at this, you can see this is a good one too. There's a downward swoop on this. There's a downward slope and then a little crossover. And then this one's nice because it does a loop and it goes off into perspective. So this is very nice right here. This one is good. This demo is set up, come on Toon Boom, with just a one over loop and an under loop, which is fine. Anything will work. I'm using a gray background. Now, the very first thing that you should know about Toon Boom is that you have to give yourself a new color card in order for anything to render properly. And my color card is just sitting down there. And I always have it on the bottom. Please make sure that your color card is not nested inside any of the other layers. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back to my effects layer here. I've got my guide, I've got my arc layer, and I've got 12 or 14, maybe 15 frames where there's nothing happening. And the reason for this is pretty simple. Once you hit the beginning of your shot and you hit play, you don't want your effects to just start happening. Give yourself a half a second, give yourself 12 frames, 16 frames for your viewer's eye to register what's going on. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to place this. Oops, hold on a second. Zoom, if you're in the timeline, zooms the timeline. You have to be in this one. So I'm going to zoom in here just for a second. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Alt-I for eyedropper, Alt-D for dropper, and I'm going to pick this color. So it's picking this orb color over here. Now, when I was first learning harmony, there were a whole bunch of really just aggravating things about it. Like for instance, when you double click on this, I hate these color pickers, right? And I was about ready to just like murder somebody. I was so mad. And I was getting ready to leave the house. I had to go downtown and I accidentally hit the multicolor wheel mode and my whole life changed. Because as you can see, what's that?
How do you get that setting? I need that setting. So, I hate the chroma, like the luminosity BS that they do for the regular one.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to make a new color. And when you're doing this in harmony, it copies the color that you just had. And the other thing that you want to know is I'm going to right click in here and I'm just going to say swatch mode because I don't like these stacks. I don't like these stacks of color. So I'm going to always be in swatch mode. And then I'm going to be very careful about how I'm naming my file or my color. So I'm going to once you're in swatch mode, you can't just double click here because it just changes the name. So I'm just going to write core, but you have to double click on the very edge of it to get to this multicolor wheel mode. So you double click on it to get to this, and this is brilliant. Hue, color, saturation, value. This is just brilliant. This and this won the Winsor McKay Award 5 or 6 years ago from CIFA, and this is just brilliant. All right, so then again, this is my core.
This is so good.
Core 2. It's my core 2 color. I try to keep these names short and sweet so that I can always see them when I'm in the swatch mode. Don't make your names too long. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new layer here. And this is just going to be a drawing layer. And I'm going to put my drawing, I'm just going to rename this drawing core. And the first thing that you have to do is add this core in here. So with my new core 2 color and my pencil, I'm just going to, and I'm on frame number 14, is that I'm going to just draw the core right on top of where this is. And then I'm going to use the greater than and less than signs on the keyboard. And I'm going to go 2 frames out because I want to be on 2s. And then I want to draw a new core. Now I'm going to turn my onion skin on either here, which onion skins everything, or I can turn it on individually over here. You should already know that. Once I do this, so I've already drawn this core right here. This is my general speed. It's about 1 inch. I'm about 200%. So now I'm going to go greater than sign, 2 frames out, and you can see that this frame is empty. As soon as I start to draw this one, it fills in that on 2s section. So then the next thing I'm going to do is open up my onion skin so that I can reveal where I've been. So then I'm just going to touch back in here and I'm going to go greater than sign, 2 frames out, and I'm going to draw right here. And I'm going to keep going. So in this, and you can see now I'm starting to speed up right here. So I'm spreading my drawings out a little faster. So you can see that I just did that on 2s, greater than sign. Oh, I just made a mistake. Hold on a second. So right here, you can kind of see that this is on 2s and then this one. So I'm just going to hit way off on the right side of my keyboard. I'm going to hit the minus sign, which just takes 1 frame away from that. I want to stay on 2s. So right here, I'm going to go 2 frames out. And now as it gets to the top of this little arc, it starts to slow down a little bit because gravity is taking a hold of it. And so I'm just copying what I had already. And so I'm just and I'm looking at, and I can open up this onion skin to see all of the timing. And it's hard to do this with your Wacom pen. So let me come back over here. So now I want to open this. I want to see everything. Track. Oops. All right, so now here, 2 frames out, and I'm going to keep going. Oops, hold on a second. So this is the first thing you do is you set the core of the thing that's creating your pixie dust, and you think about speed and relative quick versus slowing into the top of the arc. Like that's really fast right there. Look at this distance compared to the distance it was going around the top. And so when I'm looking at this, now I'm going to hit Shift M to come back out of here. So you can see I'm about a third of the way through here. So that's the first thing I do is I set that so that I come in on frame 14, everything is on 2s, and I'm just going to hit play and just see what the general speed of that core looks like. And there it goes all the way through there. So that's good. I mean, I could have even slowed it down a lot more right here, but that's okay. All right, is everyone okay just for the moment? So the first thing is,
I might have missed this part. So then after doing these dots, we're going to draw in the affected pixie dust, or are you using a brush that gives you those?
No, I'm going to draw the pixie dust by hand.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm going to draw.
So I wanted to clarify.
But I'm also trying to get.
Right now, it's like mapping the timing, it seems, or the spacing.
I forgot. Millie, you have to leave, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to, and we're recording this, so you'll be able to pick up the rest of this in the class when you watch it on YouTube. All right, so also the middle mouse on your middle wheel on your mouse is zoom, and then option and command. I lied, hold on. Option and command is rotate, right? That's an awesome tool. And then to get out of that is a shift M. Okay.
I think it's Shift X on my keyboard. I just wanted to say that in case like someone else is using a Mac, Shift X seems to work too. Or I don't know if it's a Mac thing, but like.
You might on a PC. I don't know. I've always known Shift M. All right, so once I got the speed of that little...
In any case, it's a very convenient thing if you're left-handed. So.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so I can see here...
Oh, yeah, it is.
Sorry, bye.
Okay, bye. So you can see here that I've made a very big mistake by drawing this little orb, this little green orb right here. And then I accidentally went all the way out to the end and drew another sloppy thing because I was talking and trying to draw at the same time, which is always dangerous. And so there's a couple of easy ways to fix this. And I always like showing you ways to fix it. So I want that little orb right there, but I don't want any of this. So I'm going to shift select all of this and just hit the delete key, or I'm going to right click and hit delete. And it looks like my machine is being a little laggy right now. So I'm going to save this. And you can see that I've got a whole bunch of stuff open. So, all right. So, so I've done this. Let's just imagine that I've taken this little orb and I've got it all the way through my arc. And you can see that I'm putting the little core right on the center of that line. And then what I'm going to do is you can do it on a separate level if you want. Sometimes it has a little bit more control, putting it on a separate level. Because then you can always delete your core. You can always just turn it off if you want. All right, so what you have to think about now, and I'm going to open up a demo layer, and this is going to be new to this folder here. So what I'm going to do right here is this is just going to be like, I'm just going to call this demo. And I usually hate that because way too many things end up becoming demos. Remember, you are working in vectors. I don't want anybody ever working in bitmap. Just always stay in vectors. So I'm going to add and close this. And I'm going to drag this layer underneath my core. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back out here again to frame 14. And you can start to see here that I've got a bunch, and I'm going to give myself a new color, by the way. And by the way, the other thing about this color selector here, and I wish this was true in like almost every other application ever out there for the computer, is that I've called this core 8 pixie dust, core_8 PD. And that's as long of a name that I think I want to give it. And I'm just going to say, yes, I'm going to keep that. And I can see that, right? But the other thing about that is that if I go in here, and let's just say that I draw my, I'm gonna start drawing the actual pixie dust that is falling behind the core. Is everyone following my terminology? So I'm just going to draw a bunch of pixie dust that's falling as this core goes that way. If I go in here and I change this in any way, it's going to change the instance of that color on the stage everywhere I've ever drawn it. So everywhere I've used core 8 PD pixie dust, it's going to change that color everywhere. And that's just brilliant. That's just freakishly brilliant. I love this. You know, this should solve world peace and world hunger and love and peace just for this color selector. So keep that in mind. You got to double click on the edge, and then, you know, you've got all kinds of things. You've got an alpha in here. You've got gradient. You got your RGB values, your hue, saturation, and vibrance. It's like, this is just the greatest color picker ever. Okay, so I'm on my very first frame here. And I'm gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna do a couple of things really fast. So pay attention. Everybody ready? So right now, I'm gonna do this fast. So I've got a couple of pixie dusts right here. Oops, hold on, I'm in the wrong thing. All right, and I'm pretty happy with the speed of the center of the pixie dust generator, if you will. This, I'm gonna go out 2 frames. I'm gonna look at my timeline. I'm right here, so I'm gonna draw a bunch of pixie dust that's behind here. Good one. So the idea is random. This is shooting off pixie dust random, and here comes this thing. Here comes that, no, I don't know why I can't see my, hold on a second. I don't know what I did with my template. Oh, there it is. So keep this in mind. Keep this little legend in your mind's eye. And just, you know, it's a really good thing to have. What kind of shapes are you using? And I'm drawing this outside the frame, so you can't see it. But I want to mix this up. So maybe the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw here. I'm going to draw a bunch of pixie dust. But then these pixie dust pieces have to fall. And you have to draw them so that they are never in the same place twice. If you do, then they will stall and they won't move. So now I'm going to go 2 frames out, and this piece of orb, pixie dust core, is generating, and there's a circle right there, and it's generating more, and they're falling. And these guys that were generated before are falling. See this? And then these from frame 1 are falling, and eventually they will die out. So on frame 3, on the 3rd drawing, you've already got a couple hundred pieces of pixie dust. And you just kind of have to keep going at it. Keep the shapes random. Circles, bigger shapes. And what I meant by doing it fast is now I'm coming out here. So now I'm just going to go through this whole thing, and I'm going to draw this bunch of pixie dust, keeping it random, going back and forth, left and right. Then I'm going to get the red is the frames that were before, and I'm going to just keep them falling. The pixie dust has a little tiny bit of weight to it. So these little pieces have to fall, and they can't be on top of any one of the other little instances of pixie dust before, because then they'll stall, they won't move, and they won't twinkle. I also want to keep a general direction. All right, and then I'm going to go to the 2 frames out, and I'm going to keep going. So again, these little pieces of pixie dust are coming straight off. These are also, there's also a bunch that are falling right away. And in this one, I'm on my 5th drawing here. These little pieces of pixie dust are falling. Gravity is pulling them through the air. So I've got a whole bunch of pixie dust that I have to draw. Now, one of the things that I could remind all of you is that I'm drawing just like the haze. I'm drawing the general mist that's coming off the core first. And I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to go to this one, and I'm going to keep going. So, and I'm trying to make it random. I'm going to put, go through this. I'll do this whole thing. I'll make sure that it's falling. I can go backwards through my timeline and forwards through my timeline. This is the one, and I was using the greater than and less than signs on the keyboard right there. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that here in just a moment. So again, I'm on this frame. I'm going to use the greater than sign to go out 2 frames. This is where I am. Get the pixie dust to trail behind it. Now, one of the things that I am doing here is I'm trying not to do this. I'm trying not to draw little sprinkles. I'm trying to draw circles. I'm trying to draw little dots. Everyone got that idea? All right, here's the next one. 2 frames out, everything's on 2s. Let's draw the core and the pixie dust that's falling. And this is falling straight down. So this is a difficult thing here if you want to use rotate your screen, you might lose your orientation of where your gravity is. So don't use that tool right away. We're on our 7th drawing here, and we now still have to continue most of the other little pieces of pixie dust. Sometime around here, we can probably start diminishing it, but this stuff is falling. So this stuff that was up here is falling. All right, and now I'm gonna use the greater than sign twice more to get to this one. And now he's gonna be falling downwards, and this stuff is falling straight down. Remember, don't put a dot right on top of where the other ones are. And just go 2 frames out. I'm gonna come back to this. That's not even close to where we need to be. So I'm just gonna set that. Then I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna set this one. And these are falling. And I'm just doing this to set the keys. I'm doing this to set this correctly here. The green core, pixie dust, and falling. See how it's falling? And these 2 are bad. Those, I don't want those. They have to be dots. They're little particles. This is all falling. All right, and then I'm gonna go 2 frames out. And these guys are falling. All right, let's do a couple more. I'm gonna come back to that one. This stuff is falling. I'm gonna go 2 more out. This is leaving behind, and this stuff is falling. Good. 1 more. So now it's starting to speed up again. It's leaving random trail of pixie dust behind it. And this stuff continues to fall. All right, I'm doing this fast. Now we're on, hold on a second and go backwards. All right, so now once you've got these set on 2s here, you can switch. Now you can zoom out just a little bit. And now you can use your F key, which goes backwards, and your G keys, which goes forwards. So this is your key. So now using your G key, you can just go to the next keyframe. And now I can go to G, and it jumps the 2. You don't have to look at every single frame, right? So now you can start making another pass at this by going just key to key. Now you can just go to this one, and then fill in some more pixie dust. Go to the next one, fill in some more, go to the next one. I'm hitting the G key and the G key and all the way through this. Then you can go back to the beginning, and now you can add in larger parts. If you want to zoom in on this a little bit, now you can just add in a bigger pixie dust. Remember your legend, right? Now you're going to be doing this pass. So use your G key and draw, and make sure they're not on top of each other anywhere. Or, big ones, and open circles. Go to your G key, open circle. And you can see this. The logic would be is that these guys here, this is an exploding star. So if I go, it's also moving downwards. So this little star right here is 5-point star in the next keyframe. Oops, that's your H key, which jumps your levels, and you don't want that. So this little star is coming down, and then it's getting bigger, and then it explodes. You see that? See the 5-point little star? Let me green that in for you so you can see it a little better. I always start from the center and try to get the edges of the star to be sharp. So the star is falling, and exploding at the same time. It's falling and exploding on twos at the same time. So then it's exploding a lot. And you can't do these when you're doing your first pass. You have to do these all separately. So then there's one more. It explodes really far out from that center point. Try to get yourself into a place where you understand this and get it to spin at the same time. So it's even going out one more from this. Let's take a look at what we've got just for play. All right, you see that little exploding star? See the little exploding stars we've got in there? All right, so that's your first couple passes. I don't know what this is. I must have drawn something on there. Yeah, I don't know what this keyframe is here. I must have drawn a little dot somewhere. I don't know where it is. All right, so, and then you continue that through what I've got right now is 135 frames, which is just about 5 seconds worth of animation, which is what you are looking at, which you're all looking at here. So once you've got and remember, put the arc on its own layer so you can turn the arc off. And then you can take a look at what your pixie dust actually looks like. Now I've got a horizon back there. I think I might even have the horizon on its own layer. Let me see what I did with it. Yeah, I've just got it's on its edge layer here. And even though the BG is there, the BG should just be like, that's it. It's just a gray rectangle. So I just took one of these puppies and I just made a rectangle. Oops, I don't want to do that. Hold on. So I just made a rectangle and I put it over the entire stage. Just dragged it over the entire stage. And then I used my paint bucket tool. And remember that there's a couple of funky things about your paint bucket tool, is that there's a whole bunch of different paint, unpainted, repaint, unpaint, stroke, and close gap. Let's just stay with paint. And we're gonna pick this BG color and just paint it. Now, I've already got one back there, and even though it's on the same layer, it can be kind of confusing that now I've got 2 separate backgrounds. Come on, Tuboom. So I'm just going to select it. So you see I've got 2 of them, right? And I don't necessarily, and oh, and by the way, when I made that rectangle has a stroke around it as well. And so so you can delete different parts of it, but that's how I did the background. I just made a thing of gray. In the past, when I've run sessions of this class, I've actually had students draw like an elaborate environment back here. And you're welcome to draw something simple, but keep it very simple, just line drawing, if you will. But let's concentrate on the pixie dust on the effects animation. Once again, it looks just like this. And I want to field any questions from you. Anybody have any questions so far?
Do you have a frame limit that you want us to do, or?
No, but I don't want you to kill yourselves. 5 seconds is plenty. 5 seconds is plenty. And one of the reasons for that is the following, is that in this arc, I'm going to turn my arc back on. Oops, I turned everything off. My arc goes all the way out here, right? You can see it, right? And on this particular frame, the pixie dust, look at how much pixie dust. And that's just frame 76. And so that pixie dust has to go off the screen. So here it is. We are now at frame 130. No, I'm sorry. We're in frame 98. I'm going to turn the onion skin off for just a moment. And remember, it's kind of hard to see it because we haven't rendered that thing yet. So this is the last frame that we actually see the little orb, if everyone's paying attention. But then as this pixie dust that's still on the screen has to fall. So even though the orb is out, now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 frames of the pixie dust falling, which is on 2, so that is about a second. This is about a full second of the pixie dust falling, and then nothing at the end. And if you know anything about cinema or film or animation, this is called a handle. At the very front of the shot, this 14 frames of nothing is called a handle. And this is a handle at the end of it. So I want you developing the sense of presentation. So put a handle at the beginning and a handle at the end. All right, then there's a couple other things that I'd like you to do. I'm going to turn the arc off again, and we're going to play this just to take another look at it and to make sure that I didn't screw up my background. Okay, so let's just review here just really quickly. When we have the pixie dust coming in, we set the timing for the center of the little core of the thing that's going to be generating the pixie dust, the hot core of the sparkler, if you will. And we're gonna keep bringing that in, and this pixie dust is going to have to fall. And then just a couple of different places on the same level, add a bunch of little stars that explode. And remember that that's going to take on 2s 4 or 5 frames, 4 or 5 drawings on 2, so that's 10 or 12 frames. So that these things explode in about a half a second. And you don't need to do more than 3 or 4 of them. If you try to do a lot of them, you're going to be really mad. You'll be upset. It'll just take too much time. All right, so once again, this pixie dust right here has to fall. And the reason that I'm saying this is because I've taught this class a whole bunch of times before, and half of you are going to forget this. So let's review this one more time. As I'm getting the little core, the first thing I draw the little core on the arc, and it's moving. It's moving. It's going great. It's doing its thing. It's right on the line. But the pixie dust has to fall underneath it. So keep this in mind. I'm going to go back to my core here, my pencil. So this little dust has to fall. And I keep my onion skin on so I know where the other hot spots, the other pixie dusts were. Does that make sense to everybody? Because I don't want those to stall. And you're going to have to draw a lot of these. And if you do this right, they will sparkle. If you draw a big one, then on the next frame, the next big one's got to fall. So, and you can see that red is the frames that were behind, and green are the frames that are coming up, but I don't have my green turned on right now, which leads the onion skin. I just want to know what frame I'm on, and I'm actually drawing on the wrong layer right now, so hold on. All right, so I'm going to go.
I was wondering, when we do this, will we need to do a loop-de-loop, or like, do we actually have to think of a pattern that involves that, or?
Well, you need to draw your arc, right? And I just drew my arc.
Well, obviously, I was just wondering if I just meant, like, does our arc have to, or could it just be like, up and down, up and down?
No, don't do that. Remember that what I did for this, that this has a nice shape to it. It curls, It curls counterclockwise, and then it curls clockwise and goes off into the distance. And that's a nice shape. Mm-hmm. The shape that I have right here you know, it's okay. It's not the absolute best, but I think that you also don't want to make it too complicated because you want to be done by frame 130 or something.
Mhm.
You know, you want to finish this, and this is not due next week. You know, you've got a couple weeks to do this. All right, so step one, draw your arc. Make sure it's smooth and nice and beautiful. Step two, get the little hot spot, the thing that generates the pixie dust to move correctly on and how you want it. You want it to slow down, you want it to speed up. And then the next step is to go, and this is the hard part, is to go in there and to put that little pixie dust in there. I think I've got a strange little anomaly where it's making my background color red. Yeah, that's weird. All right, so this is going to take the most time, is getting those little dots in the right place. And remember that there's your key. You want some variation, and you want random, and you want none of those dots to be on top of each other. All right, so then what you're going to do, and I would highly recommend doing this on another layer. So I'm going to bring this one up, and I'm just going to call this mist. And I don't want it to be all capital, so let me fix that. It's going to be a vector I'm going to add and close. I'm going to put the mist underneath my demo layer. And now for this one, I'm going to use a brush. And I'm going to go to the brush. I'm going to move this over. And I'm going to see what one of these little special effects brushes looks like. So I've got a brush on cloth. I've got this dusty pastel. So let me see what this looks like. I'm going to just leave this open here. I got a size, it's 83. And let me turn my background. Yeah, I want this to be to gray. So what does this look like? So you see what I just did there? And I just tested it outside the range of my pixie dust because I wanted to see it. So let's pick a new color in case we want to change it. Whenever you do anything, just always pick a new color. So this one is going to be mist. And an underscore 2. Mist underscore 2. And I'm going to pick a new color for this because I want it to complement whatever we had. This is green, and I'm going to pull off my color wheel, and I want this one to be more in the red or purple range. And remember, once you've done this, you can always go back and change it. I'm going to give this one an alpha of about 150 or so, about 3/4 of the way. Once you do that, you'll see that your color has a little alpha indication on it. So go over here to your stage and draw it. That's good. That's good right there. It's just dim enough I can see it. So I'm on this mist layer, and this is a brand new layer, so I have to create this on top of the frames. I'm going to put this away, and this is just to complement what you've already got. As long as this core is moving correctly on the arc and the main pixie dust is working, this is a nice little step right here. So right now, I'm on the very first frame. So I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So I'm going to go in here, and I want this little purple brush just once behind it. That's all I want, is one little swipe. Now, if you've done this correctly and your pixie dust is falling correctly, then you can use this tool, which helps you draw. And you don't have to worry about gravity so much. You just look at where the pixie dust was. And this is a nice attack on the Wacom tablet that I have. So now I'm going to go, and remember, I'm on a new layer here. So I have to use my greater than sign. Now I can just kind of put 1 or 2 little brushes in here. And remember, you're making this purple so you can see it. But if you want if this mist 2 color to go back to this hot green color, then you can change it at the last minute. You can change it wherever you want. All right, so you're here. You're going to go 2 frames out. Now you're going to do here. And this is the reminder that the pixie dust has to fall. There's a pressure sensitivity here, so you can just kind of brush it in there just really nicely. Go out 2 more frames with the greater than sign, and just give yourself, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I just did all of that in the wrong color. Hold on. Greater than sign, 2 frames out. And this remind you that all that mist should be falling. All right, and then 2 frames out. Now we're up here. All of this should be falling. All right. And then Shift M to get back so you can tell whether it's falling in the right direction. It should be a little thicker right here. 2 frames out. Now we're on this frame and it should be falling. And then you don't really want this stripy thing happening too much. So I'm going to go 2 frames backwards and just kind of fill this in a little bit. And let me just show you, because you see what's happening with the onion skin is showing me that there was just too much of a stripe happening there. And so I'm just, let me just finish this pass. So right now I'm on this frame right here. Now I'm on this frame, and this is falling, and right about there it's diminishing. And so I'm just barely touching my screen here. Let's go to this one. All right, and this pixie dust should be falling. All right, then we go up to this one. And then this is diminishing. This pixie dust here doesn't have to live all that longer. And this is just your mist. This is just the core. All right, let's keep going. And now this is gonna double over on itself. This is gonna fall right across the stuff that we've just done. All right, and now I'm in a space where I haven't drawn any of the new pixie dust. I'm just drawing the core, which is kind of against the rules. But you see what I'm doing here? This is falling and it's crossing over this part here. All right, 2 more out. Now this part's falling from the frame before it, and this stuff is now diminishing. All right, now I'm here, and this is diminishing, and now this is about right there. All right, so let's take a look. We're looking for this hot purple right there, right? All right, let's take a look at what we've got just for our demo. All right, so one thing that you can do here is that this little mist part here. Let's just take one of the frames. Let's turn the onion skin off. And so let's zoom in on this. Oops. All right, so let's just take a look at this. We've got a really hot color here. You know, it's purple. One of the things you can do, double clicking on this, is you could take the alpha down just a little bit. You know, you can always push it more towards the hot little yellow that you started with, which is fine. You can give it you don't need to give it a gradient, but I think that once you've got this little yellow in place, then and the dappling is going to give you some of the effect of drawing the actual pixie dust. But don't get hung up on this. Don't let this be the only thing that you do for pixie dust, because I want to see hundreds of these little dots. That's the whole charm of something like your Cinderella moment. That's the whole charm here, is getting that pixie dust to just be magic. You're creating magic. All right, so let me take a look at this now that I've changed the color. All right, so there's a couple of things that are kind of shining in my eyes, and one of them is that the mist that I've drawn, it's just a little too brushy, if you will. It's just a little too brushy. So, and because I've got the mist on its own layer here, I'm gonna pull a fast one on you. I'm going to show all of you how to put a blur on just this mist layer. And in order to do this, I'm going to go to the node view. And in the node view, I'm going to see what I've got here. I've got a whole bunch of different levels, and they're all kind of jumped up on each other. Instead of moving things around by themselves, what I'm going to do is just I'm going to hit Command A to select everything. And I'm going to hit this first button here. And I'm going to say separate everything by 25 pixels. And what that does is it kind of expands everything out. So what I'm looking for is the layer that I called mist. All right, and so over here, I'm just going to click on this mist, and it should be highlighted somewhere. There it is, highlighted. So I'm going to drag this out just a little bit. Then I'm going to go to my node library, and I'm going to find, let's find a blur. So I'm going to take this Gaussian blur, and I'm just going to drag it right here. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do this. I like doing it the manual way. So California Brown, bear with me for just a moment. So I'm just going to put those two like this, and I'm going to grab the end and put it in the top. I'm going to grab the bottom and put it in the composition mode. Once I do that, I'm going to go back to my timeline, and I can see that in the mist layer, now I've got, did I put it on the right layer? I put it in the wrong layer. Oh, hold on a second. So I actually put the Gaussian blur in the wrong place. So what I want to do is I want to disconnect it, and I want the mist to be in the blur. Right? And so I don't like how those two things are crossing over. What I'll probably do is do this, just so that it's clean. Does everyone understand what I'm doing? So I'm in the node view, and in this node library, there's just a trillion things down here. When I was learning Toon Boom, there were just 50 or 60 of these guys, these little nodes you can put down here. But now there are so many of them that you can just ruin your project. So blur, timeline, mist, and now I've got the blur, which is, so if I toggle this mist like this, you can see that it's got the blur here. So I want to open up the blur, and I've got a blurriness set at 0. So what I want to do right now is I want to go out to a frame where I could see it a little better. And I'm going to turn on this render flower. And this render flower is going to show me what I'm actually working with. I can't play it. It will not play in this mode, but I'm just going to show it to you. So right now I want to turn the arc off so I can see just my artwork. And I want to go back to this blurriness. So I'm going to take the blurriness and I'm just going to drag it to 2. See what happened? Everyone see that? It just became really blurry. Let's screw it up. Let's take this and make it like crazy blurry. See that? Now it's up to 4.9, right? Let's see how far it'll go. Let's take it up to 12. It's going to take a moment to render. Now I can barely see it anymore. So let's take it back down again. And again, I'm just touching it and dragging it. So now I'm looking at maybe 5 or 6. That's kind of nice right there. All right, so once you've done this, once you've got this node thing, and by the way, once you start setting layers and drawing and putting pixie dust in there and doing all kinds of stuff with color and fun art, this node view is always there. It's just that has anyone played with this before? It's always been there, and I'm only showing you blur, but you can do all kinds of other things as we go through the semester. I'll show you a couple other ones that are really cool, or you could do them yourself if you want.
Quick question about the node view.
Yes.
So the node view is where you can add just a bunch of special effects to your drawings,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Any of these nodes can be used in here. Did you see Klaus?
I haven't, no.
You know, they used a pipeline that was very similar to this. Different, but parts of it are similar. But that's how you use this. That's how you use you drive the mist into the Gaussian blur. And you can see over here that I've got a glow, and I'm not using it yet. I've got a transparency that I'm not using either. You know, and those are the big ones, the Gaussian blur, the transparency, and the glow. And you can use them all that you want, and it's logic. If the mist layer is feeding into a blur, then the blur has to feed into the composition. It's just logic. If you break it, if I go like this, then it won't even see that layer. Then this mist layer won't even render. So all the work is like, where did it go? And so you have to drag it into the composition. And once again, I always try to make sure that I have everything in its own visual place, so I know that I'm not getting in trouble.
Okay. Does it matter what order you connect them in? Like, for example, if you connected the blur.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Now I just screwed something up here. Hold on. I think that what you want to do, and remember as well, the hand tool works in this window, is to not be afraid of this, just to look at it and understand how it's working. And yeah, I could have a transparency and a glow and the blur all hooked up together. But it might also be more artistic to just stick with it. So we got it in the render mode. So let's go look at what we did here. We added the transparency and the glow. So in the mist layer, right, I've got the blur is already set. The transparency is set at 50% transparent, right? So that's half, and 100% would be 0. You couldn't see it. And then, so this little toggle opens the glow, and you can play around with all these numbers. And then the best thing you can do is just close this, right? Because you've done all that work, but you also don't want to just be mystified by what all those little numbers mean. I would keep it simple. I would just take the transparency and the glow, save it for something else, and just take the blur and use the blur. And take this glow out of there. Just play with these one by one so that you know how they work. So right now I've just got it back to the blur. It is just that simple. This is, and again, that's hiding under your color mode, under your color palette. And remember, when we are in the flower, when we're in this OpenGL mode here, render mode, this will not play. This will not play. If I hit play, it will not play, because it's just thinking about too much stuff. You can only play in I think this is OpenGL. So once you hit play, it should give you an idea of what that mist is looking like. Right, and this is not due next week. This is, you got a couple weeks to do this. And I want it to be, this is definitely wants this to be spring show ready. All right, you got that? So now, having said that, let's go back and look at some other examples. This is me, I think. This is the file you're just looking at, right? So that's me talking. And that's what you should be looking for. Oops. All right, let's find a couple other ones. It's me again. All right, let's, this is my Toon Boom folder. When you're doing your thumbnails, here's a look at what my volcano, this is my volcano for the demo. So we got smoke and lightning and volcanic ash and a splash and fire. There's a whole bunch of stuff in that one. All right. So let me do a couple more things for you in the Toon Boom demo. There's a couple of things that I noticed that need attention. And one of them is like if I'm working on this mist layer right here, I can see that that's where I left off because this one is not on 2s. So if I turn my arc back on, turn my horizon back on, and I'm gonna go to this frame, I can see that that's where I'm working right now, is this one right here. But I can also see that that little brush that I had been working with mist number 2, you know, it's kind of looking a little outer spacey. I'm not quite sure that I'm convinced that it looks like pixie dust. And we did use this dusty pastel. There's a brush on cloth. This cross hatching might work. Pointillism might work. Dry splotches. This stars might work. Let's just take a look at this one. I mean, it might be kind of obnoxious. It might be really obnoxious. Yeah, it's just, I think I don't like this. If you were going to use this, you might want to just do that. See what I'm doing? I just added like 1 or 2 little stars. But now the thing is that you're going to have to go to the next drawing and add those stars falling. So see them right there? So if you're going to use that brush, then you're going to have to get them to copy and fall. Does everyone understand that? Because technically you should be drawing this. So if you're going to use that little star brush, then you're going to have to get it to fall. And right now what I'm also trying to do is give it a different
It might even need to rotate.
You can do that, but then you're going to have to switch tools, and you're going to have to get Alt S for select, and then you're going to need to select it and then rotate it. You know, you could do that. I mean, that's a little extra step, you know, and it's at that point when you can expand them, right?
Yeah.
So then remember to go back to your brush is Alt B, and that's why I always do this. That's why I have. If you can look me in the preview window, that's why I always have a keyboard shortcuts list. And even though I've been doing this for years, it's like, what is the line tool? It's Alt /. Alt D is dropper, you know, so, and I always just have those sitting there. So you can do this. I would be careful. You don't want it to be too obvious. All right, so let's see where we were here. We were here, and so basically what I truncated was I stopped drawing the pixie dust, and that should be your main push. So for next week, you should have your arc, you should have the core timed out correctly. You should have a nice arc on the core. You should have the core timed out. You could do that just really quickly, and then just start drawing the pixie dust. And I am serious, make sure that the pixie dust falls. Make sure that it's not stuck in 3D space. You know, so for right here, for this one, let's go backwards. And now that I've had these keys locked in, I'm going to use the F key and go backwards. And remember, you have to keep your onion skin on so you know where the pixie dust was before and after it. And you want it to random. So as it goes away, the further away from the core, the skinnier, the more spread out the pixie dust should be. It should be really dense right here. I'm going backwards. And what I would recommend is just doing like a pass on the small dots and then do another one on figuring out where the big dots are, and then go back to your legend and figure out if you want little triangles or squares. You know, look at some of the special effects for Hercules. It was crazy. They did all kinds of fun shapes in there. And it does take a while. It's not hard to understand, but this does take a while to draw all these little pieces of dust.
Details.
What's that?
I was just saying details.
It is. It's all in the details. It's not gonna take you very long. And it looks to me like I put the brush and the mist on the same layer, which is usually a bad idea. I thought I didn't do that, but that's okay. All right, so once again, you're looking at somewhere about 5 seconds. But don't try to make it too long. Don't try to go crazy out past the 4-second range. And then we could talk next week about putting in the exploding stars and all that fun stuff. Let's just take a look at it again.
I have 2 questions. So one, does our animation have to tell a little story, or are we just practicing?
Well, the effect here is just a pixie dust traveling through space. So that is its own little narrative. I think that if you tried to elaborate on that by enveloping a character, I mean, as long as the character is not moving, you will find that it's going to take you at least 4 hours of just drawing dust.
Okay.
And
Jesus Christ.
And you know, just make sure that you get yourself into a mode like you're playing music. I see a keyboard behind you, and that you just go through it, but make sure that you're doing it in the right place. Make sure you're drawing all those little pieces of pixie dust in the right place.
Okay.
All right.
And second question, is it going to be at 24 frames per second?
Yes, everything we're doing is 24 FPS.
All right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you don't want to be drawing any more than that. 12 drawings. Well, wait. Just changed it. Yeah, 24 FPS. You
Okay.
don't do it at 30. You're just doing this manually.
All right.
I'm thinking about your Toon Boom interface here. Oh, let me do this for you. I forgot we should have probably started with this. I usually do this when I'm in my on-ground classes, but this is actually wicked important. Is that I'm working in Toon Boom on a file called Pixie BB version 8. So I got to remember where that was. If I go back to this is my main Toon Boom folder here, and I believe I had it open. So this is my Pixie _BB8. So this is the file that I'm working in right now. If you've never worked in Toon Boom before, pay attention to this. This is super important. Once you start doing anything in Toon Boom gives you a folder. It doesn't give you an icon like Photoshop does. It gives you a folder with all kinds of stuff in it. So don't move this stuff around. Don't change the name of any of these folders. You're welcome to look at the elements that you have, but don't change anything. You will break your folder. You will break your folder and you won't know you've broken your folder until a month from now. Because Toon Boom is really picky, and then it's like, hey, remember that thing you did in September? Well, screw you, Billy. I'm not. And it's not that the whole file will be corrupt. It's just like one layer will become corrupt. And Toon Boom is really picky. Toon Boom, you can import Flash files into it. You can import Photoshop files. You can import Maya files into Toon Boom. You can do all kinds of things. You can do, it's unbelievable how much stuff you can do. So with this folder, you're welcome to name it, and you can rename the folder whatever you want. But once this stuff is set inside here, don't change the name of any of this. You will break things out the wazoo. I have a folder on my desktop that just says Toon Boom. And when I drop a folder in there, I just leave it there. When I come back to the little icon here, I always just open with my Harmony Premium, and then I just let this stuff live all by itself. If I render, if I come over here, and I just drew something with my mouse, and I'm going to say File, Export, Movie. It's going to give me a dialog box. It's going to say H.264, which is my codec. It's going to Billy, Desktop, BB SMK Balls Movie. This is not what I want right here. So I'm going to browse. Just going to think about it for a minute. So I want to change this to Pixie Dust _ version 5. It's going to go to the desktop. So that MPEG 4 or H.264 codec QuickTime movie is going to show up on my desktop as Pixie Dust version 5. And I say save. And now I'm going to look at this again. I'm going from frames 1 to 135. It changed this directory, which is correct. I always read through my dialog box and say, okay. And then it's going to give you a little progress bar for your render queue. And then go back and look at that file. You want to open it only with QuickTime. Do not use a VLC player. Make sure you're looking at the right file. And that is the correct file. This is a strange thing. I haven't seen this double tag up here before. All right, so does everyone understand that? So once again, coming out, if you want to, nothing is due next week. I will let you share your screen with me. I think I give you 3 weeks to do this Pixie Dust, right? Which is odd because right now we're already in week 2 when you're just starting. So again, I think the challenge is making sure that the Pixie Dust falls as magic. Just make sure you're doing that correctly. This loop right here is really simple. It's almost too simple. I almost prefer the other one. I almost prefer something like this because it's just a little more complicated. The issue would be is that if this Pixie Dust is going to go off into the distance and then dissipate, this could take 3 seconds all by itself. So there is a logic for getting the Pixie Dust off the screen so it just falls and dissipates and goes away. But this is really cool. And by the time you get into the 4 or 5 second range right here, these little dots of Pixie Dust are going to be really small. So once again, this Pixie Dust right here is going way off into the distance. And these are trees and buildings and stuff, and it's just gonna like go away. This was a sketch for my flag. This was a sketch for the orb. This was a sketch for the volcano, which you just saw. This is a sketch for my tornado. And I'm losing my, I'm off the screen for Photoshop. All right, back to Harmony. Let me see if there's anything else I can put in here for you. You can see that this is where I left off with my demo doing the little brush part. Let's talk about fixing this. I thought I already fixed this. But let's just take this and select this and right click and hit delete. That's just the cleanest way to work. Some people, and once again, I'm in the drawing mode as opposed to the camera mode. And I know that the difference, but I always like being in the drawing mode itself because it keeps me oriented to where my stage is. All right, I thought there was one more thing I wanted to show you, and we're getting towards 4 o'clock. All right, once again, just to review, your pencil settings should be 5, 20, 5, 5. And so remember that the whole purpose of that is that you are emulating a pencil. A pencil's hard enough to learn how to draw, but now you got to learn how to do a stylus as well. All right, there is a exposure sheet if you're interested. I don't use it very much because I always use the timeline. And I see people using it once in a while, but let me just see where I don't even know where it is.
What is the difference between the exposure sheet and the onion skin?
The onion skin and the what?
Exposure sheet.
The exposure sheet just shows you where everything is. But in my mind, it's a little too clunky, and I don't use it very often. I don't even know where it. Oh, here it is. It's on the bottom. So it looks like this. So it's and this is traditional.
Oh,
So
duh,
you've got a
that's a huge
background.
difference.
You've got the arc. You've got your effects. I believe though that you can try to edit things in here. But it may not edit in the timeline. And that's one of the reasons why I don't use it, is because the X sheet and the timeline aren't like synchronized to each other. So I would just use this to look at it once in a while. And I am a traditional 2D animator, so I understand this implicitly. I understand everything about this. It makes me happy that this exposure sheet is like this. It makes me happy that I can see that everything's on 2s. But it's also much bigger than this. And let me see what happens if I hit the 1 key. So it is making it smaller, but it's also becoming exponentially harder to read. So what I was doing there was just using my zoom, which is the 1 and 2 on the keyboard. And once again, I don't use this very much. I see some of my animators, like Daisy and John and Charlie, they have you working in the X sheet mode, which is fine. And if you're comfortable with it, that's fine. But I generally just stay with my timeline view down here. All right, just a couple of things. Keep your keep your layer names simple and elegant and easy to read. I believe you can change the color of things with this little box right here. No, I lied. That's just outline. Let me think. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else you might need. Oh, there's a couple of things right here. So this right here is your action safe area. And so this was set 16 by 9 when we actually made the file. And this is always a nice thing to remember, is to stay away from the edges. Key, stay away from the edges. Don't have anything animated near an edge. I would also like the title safe area in here, but they don't have that. This is just your render mode. This key right here just tells you what you're actually looking at, and then you just use it occasionally. But remember, when you're in the render view, it's not going to give you an animation preview. So you have to be in the OpenGL in order to see anything that you've drawn, anything that you're working on move. And this shows you your center point. Now, ideally, I think there would be a nice option right here that showed you where your cinematic thirds are. that showed you where your upper and lower, right and left cinematic thirds are, but I don't believe that that's an option yet. We're using this just in terms of paper. The whole idea of using this Toon Boom software is to pretend we're just drawing on paper.